like a crazy kid. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with having a crazy kid inside of you. Not even anything wrong with having a crazy kid beside you. But finding an outlet for that energy, a healthy place to put that expression of energy, that takes a little creativity and self-awareness. All right, so I'm gonna wing it today. Who am I kidding? I always wing it. Today's not any different. I want to talk today a little bit about shadow self, as well as integration and transmutation, or at least how I understand those concepts and what it is that I see them as, and how I can see the benefits of them. One of the things that I've noticed in my life is that there have been really bright periods of where I feel like I'm on path and I'm doing the right thing. And then I have other periods where I think back and it's almost a little cringe to think about, because I feel like I wasn't all that I could have been, and I think back and feel a little disappointment in how I showed up and who I was in those moments. And of course, there's a lot of things that happen in our lives while we're learning, and forgiving ourselves is a big part of that. But I think there's a little more to it, or at least that's what I think. In my process, I'd say the two major forces that I use, I guess, to make personal changes, aside from trying to be honest with myself and accountable, self-aware, know thyself first. But beyond that, what do I do with that energy once I know that it's there? How do I put it into a new direction? How do I change the actual energy inside of me? And that's where these two concepts come into play for me. One, transmutation, hands down my favorite way to transition, transformation, favorite. Like, transmutation is, to me, changing power, or changing, I don't know, like bitterness into betterness, or changing pity into power, shame into awareness, or discomfort, disillusionment, dissatisfaction, disappointment, changing those energies inside of me into maybe something more powerful that I can use, something that actually works for me instead of holds me down, instead of working against me. Because, shame and guilt exhaust me. And I'm pretty sure most of you can agree that when we're feeling ashamed or guilty of something, I mean, shoot, I was a crystal meth addict, and I did some fucking shitty things that I don't even like talking about. But I've had to talk about them, and I've had to share them with people, because one, nothing's more powerful than a secret. It's got such power inside of us, and the secrets that stay inside, they create things that we don't want. I mean, it's like secrets come out sideways. So the more light that we shed on those shadow parts of ourselves, that's the shadow, the things that we don't like to talk about or share or look at, the more light we shine on those things. Yeah, it fucking hurts because, I was a dick, or I was an asshole, or I behaved in a way that I can't even believe I behaved, which has happened a lot. Sharing about it takes away its power. It takes away the power to diminish me. That's one form of transmutation, is sharing it. My favorite form of transmutation is art. Writing, painting, drawing, singing, dancing. I'm not a dancer, but I know some people really get to move it out, and I will shake around from time to time, but I like to sing, paint, write, and draw. But, transmuting energy from shame or guilt into art, I know some people feel as though that could be a negative place or to put that kind of energy, but it's truth. Truthfully, some of my art isn't good. Well, more than some. I'm sure half of my art isn't good. But I don't necessarily think that art is about sharing something good. I think art is more about sharing something that needs to be expressed, something that needs to be, something that we feel needs to escape us, an energy that needs a place to be. And a lot of times, even if I just throw a bunch of black paint on the canvas and then fling some purple, blue, and pink flicks on it, and then, pick a word and write a word on there, and then smack it, squish it, swirl it, and kick it. It doesn't make it good art. It makes it a place to put energy, a place to transmute energy. I write a lot, and I do a lot of transmutation through writing. It helps, it dispels this bubbling up inside. I don't know about you, but it seems to me like there's a lot of things that seem to be bubbling up. Where does it go? It goes where we put it. So where are we going to put it? How are we going to transmute these energies? Because not everything feels good. So I just think that it takes a lot of courage and power and insight to take those internal energies and refocus them and transmute them into other expressions. I'd love your input on transmutation. I'll touch on integration, but this integration will be an entirely different video, maybe another day. But integration is unlike transmutation in that transmutation is like alchemy, because in transmutation you're taking an energy of shame or guilt and turning it into a powerful force of expression into art. So you're taking one thing and changing it into something totally different. Integration, on the other hand, integration's a little bit more like creating a unified field of two forces, like within myself. Let's say I have, there's a part of me that loves to get shit done, laundry, and take the trash out, walk the dog, make sure the bills are paid. There's another part of me that's like, fuck that. I want to paint naked in the rain without shoes on and run around spray painting cars at night, which I don't do anymore. But in my process of trying to unify these parts of myself, because they're totally different parts of myself, it's like I don't know, my inner Republican and my inner Democrat. I mean, that's a bad example. It's not really that, because I'm neither. But these forces, they don't necessarily agree. And that's not that they're ever going to actually agree, but they can collaborate and work together. And in unifying the relationship between the two, in self-awareness, when you look within and you see that there are places that they stand on the same ground, places where they actually agree. The part of me that likes to get things done wants me to be successful. The part of me that wants to paint naked in the rain also wants me to be successful. So they do hold common grounds, and there is a unified field between the two, but finding where they connect and integrating these two parts of self so that they can collaborate instead of clash. In order to do that, takes a lot of awareness, a lot of self-awareness, which, you know, it's a process. The whole thing is a process, all of this. But integration is a big deal, and I just wanted to talk about integration a little bit, enough to differentiate the two, transmutation versus integration, because they're both emerging, but one is merging two things of the same together as a unification, and one is actually merging one element with the elements in order to create something entirely different. So that's my breakdown of the difference between transmutation, integration, and maybe touching on, and of course touching on the shadow, because I mean, that's where we find all of these things. Some people seem to think that the shadow, or the shadow self, is bad. I don't think that. I think the shadow self is where a lot of who we are hides. I think when we're kids, we just want to be loved and liked, and then we're taught that something about us is not liked or loved or likable. And so we shove it down into this shadow part of ourselves, and it stays a little kid. And that little kid still screams like a 7-year-old, and acts like a 7-year-old, and behaves like a 7-year-old because it isn't getting what it wants. Not only that, but, you know, I'm deciding, like, as a person, my person is deciding my inner person doesn't have a leg to stand on, and shouldn't be allowed to stand up within me. And that causes a lot of conflict inside of us, because we don't allow parts of ourself to be there, because people have taught us that that's not how we should behave, or who we should be, or what we should feel or think or do, or all that. And the reality of it is, behaviors in society, yeah, there might be a time and a place for everything, but there are collaborative ways to work other parts of selves into our person. You know, like, I don't know, it doesn't need to be so one-dimensional. Don't do that, it's wrong. Okay, I won't. But what can I do with this, and where can I do this, and when is it okay to do this, instead of just saying, nope, that's wrong, don't do it. I mean, I'm not a parent, but, you know, if I had a kid, I'd be like, okay, well, we can't spray paint cars, but we can go to a junkyard and spray paint cars. You know, there are ways to work this in. If you want to be and do anything, there are ways to do it in an... Got caught off Yeah, there are ways to work it all in. Basically, is what I'm saying. Like, the ways to work it all in exist. You know, takes a little creativity, a little thought, and a little self-love to be able to figure out a creative mechanism to give this energy within a place to exist. Because the more that we force these parts of ourselves down and tell them they have no right to exist, the more sideways they come out and the worse they behave. Have you ever tried to tell a kid no and then held the kid down? I haven't, but I imagine they'd scream like a crazy person. Adult might not, because an adult is, has already been trained to relinquish. But kids, they haven't been trained to relinquish. And there are parts of us inside of us that don't know how to relinquish or surrender. And they're still acting like a crazy kid. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with having a crazy kid inside of you. Not even anything wrong with having a crazy kid beside you. But finding an outlet for that energy, a healthy place to put that expression of energy that takes a little creativity and self-awareness. So I impart upon you to look for creative ways, creative outlets for transmutation, integration, and just sit with these other parts of self. Ask them questions. How do you think it is that I know that there's a part of me that wants to run around a neighborhood naked at night, spray painting cars? I've asked myself, what do you want to do right now? Well, we can't do that. Or can we? So, just ask yourself, why do I feel uncomfortable right now? And what would make me feel more comfortable? Okay, maybe it's something that can't be done, but there are creative ways to express it that are still an outlet, a way to transmutate that energy, express that energy. Because that energy deserves your attention, your love, and a place to exist. And the more you tell it it's not going to exist or it's not allowed to exist, the worse it's going to get. And you don't want that. You're talking to a former meth addict. You don't want that. I promise you.